surf centre on the sunny island of Lemnos. It's a windy morning. I'm full power right now on a 5.7. Probably a little bit too much, but actually pretty good for showing you the skills I'm going to run through today, which is how to get into the front foot strap in particular, and possibly the back one a little bit after as well. Now before we jump in and start going, just a quick check. I'm on a fairly big stable board to show you the skill. It's 155 litres, the classic sort of board that you're going to be riding if you're learning to get into the foot straps. Not so small that it's alive and all over the place and hard to control, and not so big that it's just bouncing across the water sluggishly and I don't have any reaction through my feet. And that's quite a key thing that I'm going to talk about briefly. It's about moving in towards foot steering rather than just controlling where we're going through the rig. Because as we start to speed up, the combination of the rig steering and foot steering combined is what's going to keep the board in a straight line, stop the classic problem of foot goes in the strap, skew up into the wind and fall in backwards. The other thing just to notice is the foot straps are fairly big. I've deliberately set them big enough that when it's time, I can definitely get my feet in there. They're not too clamped on the board, really small. And they're also set fairly inboard and fairly forward. It makes them less sensitive and less use, sort of, when I get in them, but it's much easier to get in them to start with. And then as you start to get better and more comfortable in them, move them further back and further out. What I've avoided are these front foot strap holes just here. Sometimes, and I quite like this term, I call them the placebo foot straps. Right now I could be in the foot strap, but they're doing absolutely nothing. They're not helping me at all, and they give me a false sense of security because I'm way too far in and forwards. As the board accelerates in a moment, I need to be getting back and out towards the foot straps like I now have, ready to slide my foot into the foot strap. Not a big step, a shuffle, and a little slide. Now I've done this without planing right now. I'm going very slow and I'm just getting used to the foot straps and where they are. And that's a great exercise to do. Hooks in or unhooked, medium to light winds. You don't need to be in the strong winds, but keeping the board in a straight line, upwind or slightly across the wind. Common misconception for windsurfing and planing foot straps is you have to bear away and go downwind to get planing, which isn't quite true. Right now I'm going to steer the board upwind a bit further. So I'm depowered, I can feel the wind, I can see the wind coming. When it's time to accelerate, I'm going to drop down low, squeezing in for a little bit more power, and I'm pushing through the toes of my front foot in particular. The board started to accelerate. If I were to just take my foot off the board, step into that foot strap, I'd skew up into the wind and slow down. So I need to counterbalance something along the way. It's partly foot steering, but I haven't got a foot. So the bit that comes into play is your rig steering. A little push with your front hand, pushing the rig towards the wind and slightly forwards, will stop me skewing up into the wind as I slip into that front foot strap. Once I'm in there, I can revert back to my foot steering a little bit more and push again through my toes to try and stop that board fighting and skewing me up into the wind. Let's try that. I'm close to the wind, dropping and driving my front foot to get the board to accelerate. Power's coming on through that front hand. Front foot strap in, push, pushing again through my toes. Now I'm in the foot strap. Acceleration comes through, driving my toes down into the board, or slowing down and back up. Wind comes from lifting those toes and digging the heels a bit. Now you could try and do the exact same thing, or nearly the same thing, out of the harness. And it does work, and it can give you a little bit more security in your head anyway. Maybe not security in terms of stability, but it feels a little bit less scary because I'm not locked onto the sail. It's good to get comfortable in the harness and to be doing this in the harness because it helps you pull the power down through the mast and keeps the board flatter in the water. But it could be easier to get used to steering downwind. No, rephrase that. It could be easier to steering from close to the wind, slightly more across and possibly down depending on power, out to the harness, and it keeps me more likely to be in a nice position puts us near the foot strap, a little step or a slide into the foot strap, then back upwind again, and into the harness. Once you're there, the same thing applies. Push through that front foot will drive you downwind, just as though I hit a lull. Pushing through that front foot will drive you downwind, start to accelerate you more. Digging through the heels will bring me back upwind. Now let's think a little bit more about this thing I'm saying here, toes and heels. Because it is relevant, toes and heels. Which one I push with will take me upwind or downwind. However, it's important to realise that I've got two legs. They don't have to be doing the same thing. For example, if I put my weight back onto the back leg, driving through my heels and my toes, the whole of my back foot, the board skews up into the wind. The rig's gone back, my body's gone forwards, but my weight is still on the back foot. It steers me into the wind. The opposite, to go downwind or across the wind. The rig's forwards, my body's back, but my weight is driving through the front foot and it makes the board accelerate. Speeding up across the wind, slowing it down to come back up. Now that's an extreme example, but the same thing applies. When we start to speed up, getting towards the foot straps, stepping in, if I put all my weight on this back leg, I'll shoot up into the wind. If I drive more through that front foot, I'll come back downwind. So yes, heels and toes, but front foot versus back foot is equally as important to keep you on the plane, keep the board stable as you're getting towards the foot straps. One to get into once you've learned how to stabilise the board and be okay in the front foot strap. And by that I mean you don't have to rush to get into the back foot. You can cruise along nicely on the front foot strap alone with your back foot near the other foot strap ready, but it doesn't have to go in instantly. When it comes to the back foot strap, let's think about the counterbalance again. That my weight is going to be on my front foot. To counterbalance that, the rig has to go back slightly, allowing me to release the back foot from being locked onto the board. So, once we're up to a bit of speed, dropping and pushing, little push with that front hand, allows me to step into the front foot strap, take the board upwind, the rig will go towards the back of it, my weight is forwards, allowing this back foot to be a little bit freer, a little bit more likely to make a little step into the foot strap. If you've done that and you skew up into the wind again because you're now further back on the board, so it's likely to happen, repeat step one, push the sail forwards, drive through the front foot strap, and feel the board accelerate once again. Back to stabilisation and blasting control. The rig can come back, my body's going forwards, and I'm driving off my back foot here, it's taking me upwind a bit. The rig comes forwards a little bit more upright with the mast over the chop, and I start to accelerate even more. Constant little adjustments. Not just in a straight line. Let's try that again. Hats back on, tightened up a bit. And what I was trying to say was constant little adjustments to keep us stable. Keep us going not just in a straight line, in fact not at all in a straight line, but now a little bit upwind, a little bit downwind, a little bit up, to keep the board flat. settings just here. I might mention a little analogy that I quite like that helps beginners realise more about steering, hopefully for a classic intermediate getting towards the foot straps and planing, realise how much adaptation there is when you're windsurfing. When you learn to drive a car and you hold the steering wheel, you might be going in a straight line, but you're constantly making little adjustments with that steering wheel, left and right, to keep it going in a straight line down the road. And that's exactly the same with windsurfing. We don't just settle in and go, now I'm going straight, I don't need to do anything. We're constantly adjusting and changing and fiddling and adapting depending on what's going on around us. It's exactly what I'm doing now. Playing with my foot straps, changing the heel and toe pressure. Trying to find a way to settle everything down, but that doesn't necessarily mean I just stand still. You can see from the camera on board now how many little adaptations and changes there are being made. Gust hits me, the rig goes back. A little bit more of a lull, the reel goes forwards, and as the rig steers me, the feet adapt and change depending on where they're pressing or pushing. And my body and my hips have to change too. Thanks again for joining me here today. I'm gonna take these cameras off and enjoy a nice little blast before I change into the coaching session later on. If you do have any special requests and things to film, make sure you drop me a line, either on the YouTube channel or Instagram, of course. Thanks for checking this out.